What did Hitler's family really think of him? What did the people who knew his face before the world knew his name actually think? Let's start with the one who ran. William Patrick Hitler, his nephew. He was born in Liverpool, raised in Europe, and dragged across continents by a last name that turned heads before it started wars. Imagine being 20 and carrying the heaviest surname on earth like a brand. Jobs disappeared when people recognized him. Doors shut. He tried to navigate it. He visited Germany in the early 1930s, curious, maybe hopeful. He met his uncle. The uncle didn't like him. And William, sensing danger, did something braver than it sounds. He left. He went to America. He wrote letters, gave public talks warning Americans about the man in Berlin. He begged President Roosevelt for a chance to fight, seriously fight, against his own uncle. Imagine walking into a recruiting office and explaining your lineage to a skeptical sergeant. Imagine the silence after you say the name. He got in. The U.S. Navy stamped his papers. He trained. And then he hunted German submarines in the North Atlantic, knowing that if he were captured, his last name would not save him. He wasn't a symbol out there. He was a radar blip, a sailor on a heaving deck, salt cutting his eyes, scanning for the shadow of steel beneath the waves. He married, had children, and later changed his surname to Stuart Houston, folding the past into a middle name he no longer wanted to carry. After the war, he ran a modest medical laboratory on Long Island. Quiet work, clean work. He never profited off the Hitler brand. He buried it. That's one answer: shame, refusal, and a life built far away. Now, the sister who looked and looked away. Paula, the quiet one. A seamstress for years, careful, polite, observant. She adored her older brother when they were children. He protected her. He made her laugh. She believed in him when he was only a failed art student with impossible goals. Later, as the crowd swelled, as flags unfurled, she stood in those early years on the edge of the stage. Not the literal stage, but the family stage, nodding, trusting, letting herself be carried by the tide. And then, the war. Bombed cities, families displaced, letters that stopped coming. The world turned to ash, and the spell broke. After 1945, Paula disappeared into a shell of anonymity. She took the name Paula Wolf. Wolf, a family nickname he used, and a thin disguise that still tells you who she once was. She told strangers her relatives were dead. She cut herself out of family photographs. When journalists found her, she was a shadow of a story. In the few interviews she gave, you hear the fracture plainly. She condemned what he did. She said the crimes were monstrous, but when she said the word brother, something softened. Not forgiveness, never that. Not denial. Just a primitive loyalty, a muscle memory of childhood. The human mind can hold two truths and never reconcile them. He was a murderer. He was her brother. She carried them both like stones. Now, the half-brother who threw stones back. Alois Hitler Jr. Older, complicated, stubborn. He and Adolf collided long before the world did. Family dinners turned into battlefields. There were accusations, slammed doors, money arguments. According to Alois Jr., the boy Adolf was a spoiled child, temper like lightning, lazy when it suited him, rigid when it didn't. They became estranged, two branches from the same trunk pointing in different directions. When Adolf became famous, Alois Jr. found a use for the fame that had cost him peace. He sold stories to British newspapers, some true, some half-true, some sharpened to sell. He portrayed Adolf as a volatile layabout, all talk, no discipline, scribbling sketches, raging about politics, drifting through his youth like a storm cloud without rain. You can judge him for selling those stories, or you can see it as survival, as spite, as a small revenge against a brother who swallowed the world. And then there's Bridget. Bridget Dowling, Alois Jr.'s wife. Irish, observant, with the eye of a diarist. In her memoirs, she paints a merciless picture of Adolf as a shiftless guest, an awkward, moody presence who lounged in their home, sketchbook in hand, brimming with grand ideas and thin patience. She described wasted days, ranting monologues, a young man allergic to honest work yet obsessed with greatness. Historians debate her accuracy. Memory is a map drawn after the journey, and sometimes we redraw the rivers. But even if her portrait is exaggerated, it rhymes with other accounts of his young adult years. The idleness, the grievance, the certainty that greatness was owed to him, not earned. Put these voices in a room: the sailor nephew who crossed an ocean to hunt U-boats, the shy sister who changed her name and hid in plain sight, the angry half-brother who sold the family secret for cash and vindication, the sister-in-law who wrote him down as lazy before the uniforms, before the balconies, before the war. None of them could change him. None of them could save him. And none of them could escape the shadow completely. But there's more to the family's silence, because silence is a character in this story.
After 1945, the Hitler surname became radioactive. Imagine walking into a bank, a school, a shop, and handing over your identification. Imagine the faces. So they sealed themselves off. Paula lived quietly. William Patrick and his children kept their heads down. They changed addresses, changed names, changed the subject. The family line seemed to choose extinction over legacy. No foundations, no reunions, no memoir boom. Just the sound of a door closing. And yet, in the scattered interviews and the thin file folders of bureaucracy, you can still read the emotional geometry. Shame angles toward distance. Distance hardens into denial or flinches into loyalty. Money complicates memory. Fame corrupts even private grief. Everyone wants a piece of the story, but the pieces cut your hands. Cut to the nephew again, just briefly. On a pitching deck at night, the sea black as coal, the horizon gone. The signalman hears an echo on the set, metal deep below moving. The crew tenses, orders shouted. If this U-boat gets through, another convoy might not. The irony doesn't matter here. Politics doesn't matter. There's only the work. Or Paula, older now, stirring tea, eyes steady. A reporter asks, "Did you love him?" She doesn't answer quickly. She understands the trap in the question. Love is an absolution. Finally, she says something small, true, unhelpful to history. "He was my brother." It lands like a dull bell. And Alois Jr., flicking ash from a cigarette, telling a journalist, "He was a tantrum in a man's coat." Cruel? Maybe. Accurate? Maybe. Motivated by profit? Certainly. But also motivated by the ancient need to say, "I knew him before you did, and I was not fooled." Bridget closes her notebook, satisfied or not. Her pages will outlive her, will be argued over by scholars, doubted, reprinted, footnoted. And somewhere, in a storage unit in New York decades later, the nephew's sons decide not to have children. The line ends not with a scandal, not with a court case, but with a choice. The door clicks shut again. So, what did Hitler's family really think of him? Not a single thought, but a tangle. Shame that crossed an ocean and enlisted under a different flag. Loyalty that couldn't forget a childhood face, even when the adult became a monster. Bitterness that sold itself to the highest bidder. Ordinary fear, the kind that changes your name and draws the curtains. And finally, a final, heavy silence. The kind families use when words can only make it worse. History often asks us to categorize: hero, villain, accomplice, victim. Families resist categories. They are messy, contradictory, human. And in that mess, you find a truth more unsettling than a simple verdict. You can know someone completely and not know what they are capable of. You can share a table with a future catastrophe and pass the salt. The nephew chose a ship. The sister chose a shadow. The half-brother chose a headline. The sister-in-law chose a pen.
and the rest of us choose what to do with their choices. That's what his family thought of him when they dared to think at all.